Hi there, I'm Jackie, and this is the Natural Healing Wheel. Today I have a guest from the UK, and she's a beautiful, beautiful accent. She is a multitude of things that I really, really enjoy and have been learning a lot about. She's psychic, she's an intuitive, she does tarot cards, she's a coach, she's an integrative person that integrates businesses. And anyway, she's got a lot to share with us about what's going on with astrology and all of what's happening in the world. How are you, Julie?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me and saying that my accent's nice. I like it.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
I feel like I have to speak really properly now.
No. My mom was from England, and I just miss that because there's no way that has the, Not that I can ever understand most of the English.
Well, the dialects here are so different. Literally 100 miles up the road just sounds completely different. So
is that right?
Yeah, very
There's
much
like there's like a snobbier one, and then there's, what is it called again? I remember I haven't heard it for many years.
So there's loads of different accents. I mean, I'm probably closer to the snobby one. I've kind of got a well-spoken voice, although I'm not very la-di-da.
And is it kind of called something? It has a name to it?
I don't know if it does.
She's more Yorkshire, or she's more
well, I mean, my accent is very mixed, really. It's much more of the south of England. My family's actually originally from London, so and I was brought up in the countryside, so I don't have the twang that some of the people around me do, thankfully. I shouldn't say that, but it's my preference that I like how I sound in comparison.
It's very easy to listen to.
The further north you go, the more complicated it gets, especially for Americans. I always say this, there's videos online that take you through different accents in different areas, and it's hilarious, like watching Americans watch it, like, because I totally get it. It's very confusing.
I love that. I'm going to look for that.
Yes, do. It's a good little fun thing to watch for 5 minutes.
My daughter, she's been trying to get me to learn, well, she's learning and it's going Italian. She wants to learn.
Oh, amazing.
So we're doing all this. I think she would really get a kick out of that. So thanks.
Amazing. Yes. Yeah. Italian's a lovely language. My sister-in-law's Italian, actually. So like from just outside Rome, and it is a beautiful language to hear. But they live over in France, so there's just like all the languages going on over here. So
I was lucky enough to finally visit that area. I got to Gibraltar for England. That was it. But it was spectacular. And we did Rome, and I have dreamt about it my whole life. And it was great. I can't wait to get back
over there. I actually spend my summers, so I take 3 months of the year and I go to the south of France in Provence, near where my brother lives. And it's beautiful. But I'm biased, like everywhere in Europe. I'm like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's so spectacular. The streets and the buildings, you just feel like you're going to turn the corner and it's going to end, because that's what happens here. Right? It's like, but that's how it is. It's just, and the food and I could just live there. And we did a cruise, so I got to see
amazing
places.
Yeah.
I want to take my daughter now.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, how long have you been gifted with doing the psychic and
all the psychic stuff?
Explain what happens for you to be a psychic? Like everybody kind of hears and has a different.
Absolutely. And that is one of the things that is my core premise, that everybody actually receives information from the universe differently. And it's always been like the core of all my teaching. So when I've taught people intuition or tarot or within business coaching, it's very much about learning that it's your language with the universe, and that's very personal to you. That's very important to me.
That's huge. Are you kidding me? That's huge. I wish somebody would have told me that.
100%. And this was it. I grew up in a family so my dad's an atheist. He doesn't believe necessarily in anything. My mum is Roman Catholic. So any kind of connection or someone that has passed over, it's the devil's work. And it's, although they're very open to it now, but it wasn't something that I was brought up to be like, oh, energy and intuition. Like none of that existed as a child. Yet I used to see things, sense things, and like feel things when I was young. but it was always just presented as like, it's your imagination. And, you know, I was adamant that my family home was haunted until I moved out and then realized it was actually me that could sense energy because it was with me all the time.
Okay, were we growing up in the same place? Like that's totally my story. That's hilarious. I could hear and feel and see, and oh my goodness. And everybody was like, oh, huh? And then what happened? Oh, and they still do.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's like for a long time, I think I probably lost it. So I moved out of home probably at like 18, I guess. And by that point, I was kind of aware of it, and it was kind of a joke. So it would be like things like my radio or my stereo music the volume would turn all the way up, and I would just be like, haha, turn it down. And then like I would talk openly to whatever, but it was always just things trying to get my attention. And it wasn't until I actually started exploring energy and looking at energy and spirit, universe, like insert whichever terminology you use here. It wasn't until I was doing that things actually calmed down. And now I don't get as much of that because I don't need to, because I can tap in like that now. It's very, very different now, which is kind of like, a lot of people think it would be the other way, that you would, the more you do, the more you see, sense and feel, whereas it's actually, no, it's just all within me now. I don't have to look outside of myself. But I had so many.
So I learned that there's four areas that we receive intuition from. Do you find like, so to me, that was, I was just from what I was learning on this course I took, it was is that clairsentience, just trying to remember. So there's like the clairaudience, the clair.
Yes. Yeah. So there's actually more than four, because there's no, but it's like, there's four main ones. I totally agree with that. Okay. And there's four that I really teach. And I actually take them out of the clair terminology because I find I don't necessarily resonate a lot with the spiritual community, because I feel like I'm very human and I'm very down to earth and I'm very logical, and I don't necessarily like all the pomp that sometimes comes with the spiritual community. Not everybody by any means, but I think where I've entered I've just gone, ooh, too much for me. So I kind of see the four main ones would be like like the clairaudience, so you can hear, which I name them under animals. So I'm like, you have deer hearing. So that's like an energy where you're always attuned to absolutely everything that's going on around you. You have the vision, which for me is hawk vision, but that would be clairvoyance. So you see things. And again, that can be anything from like seeing things in the physical. So seeing signs, symbols, repeating numbers, to having vivid dreams, to seeing colors behind your eyes, to actually seeing a ghost or apparition. Like it really varies. Yeah. You've also got the two that I find that most people have or are very aware of would be your sense of knowing. So I call this the lion energy, because it's like you always know when to pounce. You just know stuff. You just know something's happening. You can't say why it's happening. A great example of that is always when you know who is on the phone before you look at it, things like that. And then the other one is, so what have I done? So the other one is what I call elephant energy, which is the feeling. So that's what we call empaths, or just anyone who's very in tune to their body, very aware of energy, feelings and sensations. So those are the main ones. There are others, because you can taste things and you can smell things, but they're very few and far between. Let's put it that way.
Okay, that is really great, because for some reason, I always can't remember one of the clairs, and I only heard about the four clairs a couple of long weekends ago on Easter in Sedona.
Nice.
Sedona. Yeah, it was spectacular. The big full moon, and yeah, it was like the whole yeah. So it was but I love, actually, that makes more sense to me.
Same for me.
Yeah, like when you said hawk, I'm seeing owl, right? Like I love that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
That's all right. I just think that there's easier ways to communicate what energy looks like, and it's not to take it away from the spiritual community at all, but it's like some of these things come with a stereotype. When you're saying, oh, I'm clairvoyant, like people get this big vision of things and stuff like that, and it's like, if you just said you've got heightened vision, like you're more aware of what you're seeing, that doesn't sound weird or stereotypical or anything.
Yeah,
It's like you can then
I
use that.
think society's so much in that box that nobody, I mean, you step out a little bit and, you know, there's a conversation and there's the judgment, and everybody's just so, you know, we've just been programmed so deeply that we're so unaware that that's what we're doing to ourselves, you know, we're
Yeah.
just damaging ourselves, right?
Well,
But
that's it.
you are
And
affecting that other person's space as well, but not as much as, you know, that process is doing to carry it and, you know, fire it. And I think that awareness is such a, I don't know, that whole, I loved that whole intuition weekend. I think it's a really, really important thing for us to know. We're not really taught any of that. Like I've been where I'm in the spiritual world my whole life, and, you know, done stuff, come out, in and out, right? And because I don't have really any friends that I hung out with that really were in the same groove of that. And I didn't, you know, they just laugh at me and I'm whatever. Right. And once in a while you meet somebody that knows, right? That's really always great. But
yes.
yeah, I'm just yapping away. We're letting you talk. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
But we need to teach this. I'm glad that you're teaching this.
Yeah.
It's a great thing, because I learned that we're usually using one or two, and we're out of balance with it. Because I think I'm really empathic. I feel everything. I walk in a room and I feel everybody's energy. It's like, right. And so to sharpen or to understand or be aware of these other ones, apparently it takes that puts you back into balance, which I think
it's a really interesting one. I think that I really noticed how different everyone was when I first started doing like meditation groups, because I would talk about, because when I visualize and when I do a meditation on the rare occasion that I do, I can see absolutely everything. So my vision is very, very clear. And so I just assumed that if people are zoned in, they should be able to see as well. And it wasn't until people are saying like, I don't see anything. Like I literally don't see a thing. And I'm like, well, what do you get from this then? When I'm telling you to speak to your future self and you're not seeing your future self, what are you getting? And that's when you realize, and it will be like, oh, I just get this like nice feeling, or like, I just know that I'm connected. Like I don't see anything, but I just know that I'm in a different space than I was 20 minutes before. Or it's like they hear a little voice and, you know, and I'm like, okay. It's like, because you haven't necessarily developed the vision, or it's not your main sense. So it's not coming through. And it's actually something that I do now, I actually create, for when I'm doing one-to-one clients, I actually will create a meditation that is specific to what their main sense is, so that they can really benefit from it. So it's like, if you just hear things, I'm just going to talk about, what do you hear? What is that voice saying? What does it sound like? Instead of saying, what are you seeing? What are you sensing? What are you, it's like actually tailoring these things to that specific sense. And that's not something that you see. If you go on YouTube, you do not see it specifically for people's senses. And I think that's very restrictive, in all honesty.
I agree. This needs to be taught, and it's such a great tool. Like like we all are intuitive, right? Whatever people think they're not, or or something, we all have this ability, and we need to understand and just be aware that, you know, to understand it and then to learn how to activate it. Then it makes our life so much better, easier, right?
And it really doesn't take that much to become more activated. I mean, one, it does take quietening the noise of the world. So having a space where you can quieten down. And again, this is another thing where I do slightly go against the grain. I don't recommend meditation to people, which blows people's minds. And I also don't listen. I've been told by medium teachers. So the mediums are people who can communicate with past loved ones. So people who have passed on. And every medium class practice I've been to, they talk about sitting and being in the silence for at least 30 minutes a day and just sitting still and connecting. And I can't do that. It doesn't work for me. I get frustrated. I feel uncomfortable. Like I have to really be in the right mind frame to do that. And that might be once every 3 months, once every 6 months. So I'm like, well, if I can still do this and I can still communicate and get the messages that are needed, then why do I have to do that? And I've realized it's actually because I get that from a different source. I get that from my dog walks. When I go on a dog walk in the morning, I go out to the countryside, I will walk on the beach, and my dog runs around, she's having a great time, which makes me happy. And I'm free to just be in my head.
Right.
Not in the thoughts that are running away from me, not in the like critical thought, just literally like, what do I need to know today? What am I focusing on? Where am I going? I'm very business driven. So I'm always thinking about my business, what the next thing is and all of that kind of thing. And that for me is meditation. And I have to tell people, it's like, you don't have to sit and connect and do all of this stuff if you don't want to. If it's the 10 minutes that you do your makeup or the hour that you do your makeup and your hair that you're getting to think, and all it is detaching you from the usual chatter in your head, because there's different flows of energy in your mind, right? There's different voices in your head, if you were, like there's different categories of what's going on. You can differentiate between like a conscious thought and just racing thoughts. So it's actually giving your space, like your brain space, to connect to that conscious thought. And you don't have to have a whole practice and a whole routine or a whole ritual if you don't want to. If you do, great. Like it does kind of prepare you. And that's what I say about people who do like saging and smudging and meditating. It's like, that's great. That's your routine that gets you out of your own way, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. And that's like, again, something that's not taught. If you go to a meditation practice, they don't necessarily tell you that. They are more now, but again, 18 years ago, they definitely were not telling me that at all. So any group I went into, any situation I went into, class, lesson, anything about spirituality, I didn't like it because it didn't sit with me. And it wasn't until I really was like, right, I'm still getting this, I'm still doing this, and I'm doing it my own way. Like maybe there's something in that. Maybe it's meant to be my own way, and that's okay. Like,
Well, and just sharing that is actually the truth, right? Like my friend, he golfs, and so he's teaching me how to golf. And through this stressful situation I've been dealing with, I'll go down and putt because I have to clear my mind. You can't have thoughts in your brain when you're putting or golfing, right? And I just do what he says, and I'm really, really good at it. And I think it's because, just understanding that that's all you need. You just need a couple of breaths, right? Like I know. So people don't do it, and then they lose the whole benefit and they don't understand it. And they think it's a big thing that they can't do. So great conversation. Great point.
It's so easy to do. And like I say, you don't have to be intuitive and to enhance your senses. The first thing is figuring out which one of those four is your main one, and then becoming more aware of that. So when that's happening, getting into your conscious thought of, why is that happening? What does that look like, feel like, and all of that kind of thing. So if you are someone that's taking on, you walk into a room and you can sense all of that energy, noticing in your body where you're feeling that, what that feels like, acknowledging that. And the more you do that, the more you build up sort of we call it like a dictionary, really. It's like a spirit dictionary of like evidence that is like, this is what the communication is for me. This is the language for me. And again, it would be very different for you personally, and everybody who's watching, it will be very different for all of them. So if I walk into a room and I felt, I don't know, I give this example about the shoulders a lot. I get a lot of things with like tension on shoulders. So if I walk into a room and my shoulders tense, it's a warning sign, right? But for someone else, it might just be like a sign that they need to relax. So it might not be a warning sign at all. It just means that they need to take a breath. But it's like working out what that is for you personally, and then using that over and over again, because the more you use it, the easier it is to understand. Same with a language. The more you practice the language, it's just, it's our own, we just have to create our own Duolingo and do it 5 minutes a day.
Well, and just the awareness, right? Just to be aware that that's a thing that we have. It's like a muscle we've not been aware that that's something that's it's a tool for us, like a huge tool, right? Navigating through business deals, conversations, people, relationships, and then a lot of times we're not trusting it because we don't know that, but then someone says no. And then you're like, well, okay, well, because it's just not been the conversation in the mainstream. And
no, and I think logic gets in our way a lot, like it really does. So you might get a sense or a feeling that something isn't right. Like you're saying about business deals, I use it for my business all the time. There might be clients that come in that want to work with me one-to-one, and there will be a sense or a feeling in my body. So everything logically, I'm like, on paper, this person is great. The money that's going to come in is great, and it can do X, Y, and Z for me. I've got time in my schedule, but something doesn't feel right. So
I could just feel my shoulders like when you were saying that. I so get that too. And it's like, you don't know why, but you just know.
It's so difficult. I mean,
it's just energy, right? It's just the energy.
There was a project that I literally last summer, there was a project that I was asked to do. And so it was through a friend of mine, and she was like, I've got this lady, she's fantastic. And again, everything on paper, I was like, oh, brilliant. Like, she's really accomplished, she's really driven, this sounds great. And we're having the conversation with her one-to-one. And the entire time I'm like, I want to say yes, but there is something that's telling me no. And I don't know what it is. And I had to be really honest and was just like, look, she's lovely, but this isn't for me. And I cannot tell you why. And I wish I could, but I just can't tell you why. And thankfully my friend knows me, so she's very open to that and is like, okay, no, it's a no, it's fine.
So and then can I just ask, how did you handle that when somebody's coming to you and wants, and then that happens? How, as a coach, do you, for the coaches out there?
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
So
honor that. That's a very
it's very important. And I think because I feel things in my body, and the older I get, the more I'm aware that can have a physical effect, like an actual physical effect. So if I'm working with a client that doesn't feel right, so sometimes I'll do like project work, so where I'm doing like the integration stuff in someone's business, I'll come in and I'll look at the back end processes and systems, and it can be a very quick job. But if I'm sitting there and I don't want to open my laptop and I don't want to work, there's a reason for that. And I can't always say what it is, but I will feel it in my body. And then I get this spiral, and it's acknowledging the fact that I get this spiral. So I don't want to work. So I don't want to open the laptop, which means I get behind. When I'm then behind, I'm then worrying. I'm then anxious, which makes me feel sick. It gives me migraines, which puts me more behind. And then I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I will say that to myself, and I will say that to my friends. I'm like, this is an easy job. I can do this with my eyes closed. But something doesn't feel right. And it's like, if I was to work with that client continuously, like, because there's been times where I've done that and I've finished the project and they want to do more. And I'm like, this isn't for me, but I can pass you on to somebody who can help you, because it's just not for me. And for me, that's the universe pointing me to the thing that I am supposed to be doing. Like, it's like, get on this path, do the thing that you're supposed to be doing, because I don't have that with like the one-to-one clients that I'm working with. I don't have that with my tarot sessions. I don't have that in that space. I'm happy to show up. I'm there early. I'm doing all of the things. And it's not to say that anyone I've worked with is bad, or there's nothing, like, I believed in the project. I might believe in the person and their goals and their aspirations, but if something is off, it will have an effect on me. And I have to be honest and say, life is too short for it to have an effect on me. Like, way too short for it to have an effect.
Oh yeah. And if you're having that experience, then it's not beneficial for them.
No.
Anyway. And they don't even know that. So good on you, right? So that's big. That's really good stuff there. So we were talking before the podcast, and we were going to talk about
so the new things that I'm doing.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the new things so that because I end up talking so much and you're not going to get all your stuff in. Sorry.
No, that's all right. I'm enjoying the flow. Where are we going?
Oh, I love it too.
Again, it comes down to, it's very similar to a story. So I actually let go a client at the beginning of the year that I had been working with because it didn't feel right. And at that time, I sat there and I didn't know where that income was going to come from. I'm like, I've just let go of a very easy income stream. And because the intuition told me to, it said, this is what you need to do. But over the next 3 months, I've then been able to, on my dog walks, where I'm connecting, where I'm listening to my intuition, I'm then being like, my brain is processing an offer that combines both the back-end business support, the business coaching, with the intuitive and energy coaching. And it's actually pulled out of me a brand new framework that I have never seen anybody work with. Like, at all across the industry. And it's really combining all of these really powerful energy elements, and it's acknowledging how much energy is within our business. And it's been a beautiful process, like to the point that the universe has been giving me signs and symbols the entire way. I've actually been working with hawk energy, right? Because I've had hawks flying down, almost hitting me, flying in front of me, all over the place for months.
And what is the meaning behind hawk?
So this was the first thing that I asked myself, because I was like, wow, this is nice. What does this mean? So for me, again, this is always a tip for other people. If you're working with signs and symbols or anything like that, always ask yourself what it means first. So I personally know that hawks have great vision. So I was like, okay, this is about seeing something, but what else? What is it to be seen? And I did ask a friend, well, she's not really a friend, somebody I did some work with who is also a psychic. And I said, I'm being stalked by hawks. What does it mean? And she was like, I think it's something about you're not seeing something yet. And I was like, yeah, I kind of knew that. I'm like, I want someone else to tell me what I'm not seeing.
Oh, I so know that, like, you know, but you just need to know more. You need to know for sure. We're still not trusting.
Like, yes. So again, even if you are super intuitive, super in tune with the universe, you still want validation. You still want confirmation. And I mean, it was coming in those hawks, because they honestly, they followed my thought process. If I had an idea or terminology or word that I wanted to use and incorporate, I would see a hawk. It would just pop up out of nowhere. And it was amazing, even to the point that when I knew that I was getting closer and that it was all coming together as an offer that I can put out there, the hawks had gone from flying really high to coming down to the ground. And then they were sitting. So they were either sitting in a tree, sitting on the side of the road, and they weren't flying anymore. And I actually asked the universe, I was like, right, if it's ready, if you think this is ready to go to the audience and like be a viable product or service, I should say, like, show me another one. The fourth one in a row needs to be a hawk that is standing. And I woke up and I had a Google alert on my phone for weirdly somewhere in Yorkshire, because you said Yorkshire earlier. And I'm nowhere near Yorkshire, it's hours away from me. So I don't know why this alert was on my phone, but it was about a hawk that had been seen in a town centre, and he was just stood on the path. And I was like, right, that's my fourth one. That's the one, like, to say.
It's just so like that too, isn't it? Like, if you just start asking and you start to do it, it's so magical and so fun.
Yeah. And what's so ridiculous is I'm really not that person to be like, I followed the signs and everything's great. I'm really not that person. I'm so logical. I am so like, I see a vision, I want it, how do I get it? Not like, give me the advice, like letting things come to me. So I think it's kind of like irony and like the universe joking with me, because they're like, now you have to tell this story and it makes you sound really woo. Like, but it's a beautiful thing. And it's like, it's actually something I'm now working on with clients. I've now got people coming through with me on it, like on a beta launch to work over the next quarter. So we're working to essentially allow them to connect back into their own energy. So I always, as a tarot readers always read past, present, and future, which I call potential because it sounds better having the 3 Ps. But you work with that throughout whatever coaching that I do anyway. But then it's kind of incorporating. So what it's called is Be You. And the Be You one, obviously it stands for being you first. Like, that's what that means. It will always be about that, especially in your business. As an entrepreneur, you need to stand in your own personal power and bring that out. But the letters BYOU represent the 4 main energy streams that are working in everybody's business, whether they want to acknowledge them or not. So the first one, the B, is your business energy. And your business does have an energy. It's separate from you. It's affected by you, but it is separate from you. And as somebody who has worked on the back end of businesses, it needs to be separate from you. It needs to be its own entity. And a lot of people miss that and forget that. And then we have the Y, which is the you, that is your energy. So that's really tapping in to your past, your present, and your potential. And then, then we have the O, which is other people's energy. So that's connecting into your client's energy so that you can really fully understand. So again, if you're someone who's an empath and you can walk into a room and sense people's feelings, you can easily tap into your ideal client and feel what they're feeling and talk to them directly. But again, people aren't always using that. It's also representative, other people's energy is that other people you're working with, they have an energy. And sometimes there's people that are hindering your business because their energy doesn't mix with your energy. But then the you is the energy that people always seem to forget and ignore, which is the universal energy. So that's things like the law of attraction, it's astrology, it's moon cycles, it's seasons, it's all of this stuff that's happening around you 24/7 that is affecting you, that most people ignore, or at least don't bring it into their business.
Like, I know, like, you know what, that just blows me away. And I've always looked at the stars, and those are not stars anymore. Those are like multiple stars. It's so incredible. And people they're just not even aware. Like,
No.
we're this little speck spinning around out in this, universe it's just wild.
There's so much energetically going on. And it's so funny because you find, and everyone will say this, that they're becoming more open to spiritual practices, to talking about energy, but are they really bringing it into their business? Are they actually going, right, how do I use this in my business? Because people still see business as a very logical thing, and it's very structured, and it's very like masculine energy and just doing. They don't incorporate the flow energy that is happening, whether you want it to or not. It's happening. So why not use it? Why not tap into it and go with the flow rather than just being bounced along on your, like, where you're going?
Because they don't know how, because we've not been taught. It's not out there in the mainstream. It really isn't. And people know that people have this, and they'd probably like to have it themselves, but it's just not talked about.
No.
And like you said, right, like, it's this energy thing, and you think that everybody else is feeling what you're feeling, but everybody's experiencing something totally different, even though they're having the same conversation and experience. One walks away saying this happened, and one walks away saying this happened. I learned that.
Yeah, it's a very powerful thing that I think more people need to be aware of, that it's okay to blend the two. It doesn't have to be statistics, numbers, and structure and spirituality, energy, universe. It's like, actually, it's allowed to be all of those things at the same time, and that's okay.
Well, Julie, the other thing is that science is now proving this spirituality, and spirituality means know thyself. That's what it means. It doesn't mean submit to, a church, or like, it doesn't mean any of that. There's no rules with that. You're just tapping into what we're all supposed to energetically know that we have access to.
Yeah.
And it's such an incredible thing, but we don't know how to use it. Even if you know that, how do you implement it into your daily life? Right?
Yeah, very much.
What you're teaching, it's a big thing, because, you can know all that information, and, it's not enough to know it. You need to know how. Dr. Joe. This
is it. And it's like, it comes down to trusting yourself. That's the biggest block I see in people. It's this like little, we get told that these things aren't real, that it isn't this, it isn't that, or that you can't use it in business, etc., etc. So it's like, you have to fight all of that continuously, but then also fight your own inner voice that is telling you, like, this might not be the best thing. This self-doubt that pops up with everybody, and that happens across, business and personal life. We all have that, and it kind of takes away. And it's like, for me, what I say to clients all the time is that the more you do things, and the more I always say you have to write them down. If something happens, if you see a synchronicity, a repeating pattern, a message, a sign, a symbol, if you see it, please just write it down and date it, because the more that happens, you'll be able to look back at it all and be like, wow, this is happening a lot, because it is, but we just forget. So it's like having that bank of proof that you can return to and kind of evaluate. It's the same within a business. If you're going in a direction, you look back at your numbers, you look back at what you've done, you look back where you can make improvements. It's exactly the same with connecting to the universe and using energy. You look back at what your body felt like, how it showed up, what numbers appeared, what colors were really important to you. You look back at those things. Forevermore now, hawks will be associated for me with a new idea and taking it to the finish line. So whenever I see a hawk now, I don't see as many anymore, because like their message has finished, right? But when I do see it, I'm reminded, and I get that like boost of energy of like, right, I've got a vision, I'm doing my thing. And it's kind of like having that there. If I hadn't acknowledged those hawks, or if I'd have just thought those hawks were happening and was nothing to do with what I was thinking, feeling, even though it was clearly obvious it was a repeating cycle. If I hadn't have done that, like I'd just never be able to look at things in that beautiful way, like at all. And you just miss out on so many opportunities by not acknowledging and not. I started writing them down. I actually looked back and I'd started seeing them when I was in France last summer. And I hadn't realized that I'd started seeing them. And when I then looked back at what I'd written about seeing them, and I was going through a rebrand at that time, and I was like telling the person I was working with that I wanted to completely merge the two, like the energy and the business, and that was where my focus was. And then I'd kind of forgotten about it and got on with life and doing the things that we do. So for it to come back again and me to be able to look back and go, that's what it's for. It's talking about this, it's telling me this. So yeah, writing things down is I kind of call it like a brag book. Like brag about the things that happen, brag about the synchronicities, the signs, the symbols, the knowings that you have, the feelings that you have, writing them down so that you can reflect back on them. Such a powerful tool, so powerful.
You know what, it's so huge, it's so big. And with the energies that are so heightened right now, they're saying it's the highest, fastest energies that the earth has ever experienced. The scientists say that, not woo-woo people, that everybody's experiencing this intense, lots of things, lots of energies, heavier energies, I think is what they're saying. But if you cannot look at that and you can do what you're saying and just look at what's working, because we're so used to beating ourselves up, we don't even know we're doing it. I've been working on this for the last little while, and it's quite the process to have a look at all those little, what they say, 50 to 80,000 thoughts that we have in the subconscious mind every day. That were probably the same thoughts that we had yesterday. We don't even know. And we don't know why things aren't working out for us some days, right? It's the negative banter. So if we can do what you're saying, and it's not hard, it's easy, right? And then it's very easy. And it's a practice. Happiness is a choice. Depression is a choice. It's not a gene. It's not like coming through the family. Like, I guess maybe they're saying, but it's a choice. We choose our thoughts. Yeah. And it's just that, apparently. And right now, like what you're doing with the creating of your new vision and scope and business, like that's what they're saying right now. We're in a really powerful time because of the energies being so heightened. Yeah. I just love your story. I mean, so everything you're saying, I'm like, I so get what you're saying. Yeah. So great to talk to you. You have, you live out in England, we were saying. And so what are you doing for coaching and teaching, and what would our listeners, if they wanted to come and have some sessions with you, what does that look like?
Yeah, so as I say, at the moment, I'm putting most of my focus into this, it's called Be You Aligned is the program that I'm cultivating. And as I speak on this, it is obviously still in that beta format, which is fantastic, because I love being able to go through and be open and honest and not pretend that it's like this brand new, that it's this like fully sculpted thing, because I still want it to be very personal to people. I don't want it to just be a container that I'm like, you need to go through these levels and you need to feel this and you need to do that. It's still very, very personal. So I know there's a lot of business coaches out there who'll be like, no, you shouldn't do that. It needs to be scalable. Blah, blah,
that's
blah,
the past. They can do that.
It will be scalable in the future.
So you're just always creating it. It's always kind of growing and molding and changing and moving with you and your clients.
Well, this is it. And it's like people who come to me with different aspects. A lot of it is focused really on people's offers, because I feel like a lot of us are or have been really disconnected from what they offer, especially people within the spiritual community. So people come and they're like, oh, I've done Reiki training, or I'm a crystal healer, or I'm a tarot reader. And it feels really disjointed, and there's not necessarily a clear message that runs all the way through. And a lot of people who do come from a sense of standing in energy and spiritual background, so whether you're business is spiritual, but if you have that background, a lot of the time we do have that, let me stand back and not speak my voice and not speak my story. And this is very much about pulling that out. It's like tapping into your past energy. So I look at people's birth charts for one, and I look at their numerology to be able to say, right, this is part of your energy imprint. This is who you are right now. And it's like, does it, I'm going to say to them, does this resonate with you? And they're always saying yes, because it's like you pull out the thing that it's like, this is what you need to use as your anchor, essentially. It's like it really anchors your personal power and your message here for what you're doing. And then we're looking at the experiences, the stories, everything that's come from your past into where you are in this present moment. And we're also looking at what you want to do, like the big vision. And it's kind of like pulling that back into where you are now, so that energetically you can just align absolutely everything. So not only are we looking at energy, but I'm also looking at things within your business, because I've got that integrator experience where I'm in someone's business and I'm looking at systems and processes. I'm looking at like your touch points throughout your business, because I will be honest, and this will probably be a call out to some people, but a lot of people in business have not looked at their touch points or their workflows and their nurture sequences for years. And I'm like, is that message still valid for who you are and where you're going? Probably not.
Well, and can I just add something there? You know how you move into a house and you see all of how you're going to decorate it, and right? And then a couple months later, you're looking at it going, what was I going to do? Like it's almost like you can't see, it's hard to see ourselves. It's so important to have, and to have the knowledge and the experience that you have. That it's very exciting what you're doing. I'm very, very excited for your platform.
Yeah, I'm really excited as well. I'll be complete. And this is like, and I say this to everybody, this offer feels so different to anything I've done before. So I've taught intuition, I've taught people tarot, and I've been in, back end of businesses. And it's kind of something that I'd like tweaked and been doing on the background. So like back in 2020, I'd started doing like tarot readings and Reiki healing for business, like women, and kind of then pulling out my intuitive advice. But even I had that like syndrome in my mind of like, oh, maybe I don't have the experience. So I went and got the experience. I have then been in, I say this all the time, in the last 18 months, I've been inside over 25 businesses, like inside hands-on across multiple different industries, to make sure that I know that when I'm giving business advice, it comes from experience. And it's like, that gives me that energy of like that personal power, because I don't question my intuition. I don't question my knowledge on like energy whatsoever. But there was always that little bit in my mind that was like, well, do you have enough business experience? And it's like, well, yes, actually I do. So tick, now let's move forward.
Yeah, you do. I love this. I love it. That's just great. So are you, can anybody come and get some of your time at this point while you're creating that? Or like,
so at the moment, so there's kind of two different elements to it. So there is like working with me for 3 months, and then there is certain things of like clarity sessions. So if it's like, you're like, right, I just kind of need to reconnect in with myself. But I also have like offers where I can work one-to-one to really on the energy. So even if people aren't necessarily looking for like a whole alignment in their business right now, but they're just wanting to really hone in on who they are and understand energy, understand their intuition, there's stuff that I can do for that as well. So it's kind of like, I'm this sort of person that's like, reach out to me, talk to me, and I will give you what I can for free, and then advise you whether it's to work with me, or I will point you in the direction of someone else who is more suited. That's always been I'm like, women helping women is what is needed. It's like, I'm not going to just let you run off and not know what to do. I will point you towards someone. Like,
you know what, it's that's how it's supposed to be. Like, it's just, that's what feels good energetically. I love podcasting with everybody in natural healing space, because that's the energy. It's not let me step on you so I can be, there's none of that. It's such a refreshing, free, happy space to be with. People are, I think people are, they're waking up, but for the people that are new to this, you got to get some help, because there's so much, like, I can't even believe how much there is to, and you have to really you have to metabolize it. Like you have to
Yeah.
really, yeah, it's not like you just hear it and then
No,
no, that's not how it works.
no.
You hear
It's,
it, feel it, write it, see it, right, and then explain
it's
it
the
to
lived
somebody.
experience. It's very much the lived experience. And this is something that I have started saying even on like some of my newsletters, like, because I am concerned about how there are a lot of people who have perhaps gone through a mini awakening and then are trying to teach that aspect.
Okay.
And the advice that I give to people is just make sure that whoever you're learning from, that they have been through multiple cycles of growth, because it's kind of like, when you work with energy, it is always a cycle. So whether you're looking at that in seasons of like it's yearly, whether it's an 8-year cycle, whether it's moon cycles, you're continuously going through an evolution. And there's a lot of people out there who, I mean, especially within the business coaching sphere, who I'm sure they're fantastic at the business element, but they've probably only gone to a couple of moon cycle classes and now they're trying to teach the whole thing. And I'm like, have you been through years of this energy and this clearing? Because you need to be able to hold the client when they're going through the clearing, because there is a clearing element to energy. It's like you go through stuff to let stuff go and release stuff. And yeah, so I will always say that is like, make sure you're checking. It's not even about qualifications, but just like really having a conversation with who you're working with to see, you know, because I don't believe in qualification. I'm like, you know, I'm self-taught when it comes to mediumship and tarot. So I don't have, there isn't a body that regulates tarot. So I don't, you know, if someone goes, oh, I've got a qualification, I'm like, okay, cool. But so I'm not saying that they have to have a certificate, but I'm saying they need to have like been through a lot personally with energy to be able to teach it to other people. Let's put it that way.
That's so good. Yeah. Because that's, you know, you don't need that out in that space because it's already got, you know, all kinds of judgment on it already. Right. So if you're new to that, you know, yeah. And let me tell you, cycles, I was just listening to that going, oh, is that what it is? Right. It just keeps coming back round and round. Right. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I've been here before.
Yeah. So I was first really introduced to clearing when I learned Reiki. So when you do Reiki, so when you look at Reiki training courses and you go for a Reiki session and you're like, oh, I feel great, I'm really energized. And then you look at the Reiki course and you're like, oh my God, I can learn how to heal myself and do this. And then you attend the Reiki course and they tell you, when we give you an attunement, you go through a clearing for 21 days. And over that 21 days, you can clear anything that doesn't need to be in your life. So be prepared. Because when I went through so I did Reiki training twice. So I originally trained as an animal healer. So I did my Reiki for that. And I didn't really acknowledge the clearing. I think my life was just so hectic. It was like, if things fell out, it didn't really matter. But when I redid it, and then I went up to my master level so that I could teach Reiki to other people. And during that 21 days, I think I had the flu. I split up with a boyfriend and I'd let go of a client. Like there was just stuff that was just like, bye. And by the end of it, I was like, well, that feels so much nicer. But at the time, you're like, my life is changing. What's happening? So cycles and energy and clearing are things that it's just about shedding what doesn't need to be there. And that's what cycles are. Cycles allow us to let go of things and learn things and process things and elevate. It will be continuous, and it's just a leveling up the whole time.
It's a leveling up. There you go. Instead, we're beating ourselves up, or I was beating myself up, you know, back here, you know, because that ego jumps in and you're thinking, well, I've already done this, I already dealt with this, right? Thought I was through that, right? But that's
a different level.
Cycle, it just keeps apparently reproducing until
it will. This is the thing. So
really clear one of the shadows, is that what they call it? The shadows?
They do call it like shadows. And like, again, this is something where I don't necessarily sit in the norm with spiritual, like, so I don't say like love and light as an example. It's one of my pet peeves. I find it, I'm like, I like my shadow. I like my shadow. I like my shadows in the past. I like the shadows that are going to come, because that's where the learning is and that's where the growth is. The shadows are anything that's hidden, that's in your subconscious, that's there, that doesn't really need to be there. And when you're working with that, and when you're working with energy, all you're doing is shining light on the shadows. So it's like if you walk into a dark room and you shine a torch into the corner and there's like a little rat that's in the corner and it runs off, you've just cleared that shadow out. That's all it is. It's just moved on. But yeah, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard, like you say. It's like you feel like you're going through the same thing over and over again, that you're butting up against a wall when you don't want to be, and you're like, I thought I'd learned the lesson, I thought I'd done this. It's like, well, there's probably a different lesson in there. There's probably another layer
so
to
here
it.
again, right? Because we don't have any knowledge about it or the awareness, right? Instead of looking at it like, because eventually I did understand that, boy, I must have some big purpose here in this lifetime, right? When you get face planted that many times, it's for a reason. It's and to pick up and get out of that, and just to be able to, I think that it's I think that our perception, what we've all kind of taken on as a belief, is not the way that we should be looking at that, because we're just it's just, we're no good. Wasn't good enough. I didn't, like, it's just this total barrage and beating up of ourselves, and we're not even aware of most of it.
No. Well, this is one of the things, again, as a tarot reader, I'm very lucky because I get to read into a lot of energy, right? So every year, at the end of the year, I do year ahead readings for clients, and I do anywhere between 30 to 50 readings over a 3-week space for people for the year ahead. And obviously doing that many, you've got a good test pool of what the energy is for the year and what the theme is for the year.
Yeah.
And this year's theme was very much about taking that energy of where you're saying I'm here, I must have a bigger purpose, I'm face planting the floor all the time. That's what this energy is this year. It's taking those and teaching it to other people. And what I had to explain to people is it's not necessarily that you're going to stand up in front of a classroom and teach. It doesn't mean that you're going to be standing there and offering courses in things. It's a collective energy of talking about our experiences to the people who are around us, because there are people that will learn from what you've been through. They might not be going through exactly the same thing, but even if it's just a case of, I was trying to think of some of the examples that I was giving in these readings, but there was a lot of stuff about, so I have a lot of women who want to have babies, and that they're it's in their journey, but it's not happening yet. I don't know why. I seem to attract a lot of those. And the story that would come out for them would very much be about well, how about you talk to your friends about that journey, because you don't know who else is in your friend circle who needed to hear the step that you've already taken, because that step might change their life in their journey. And all that is you're telling your story. And that's talking about your shadow, because that's the stuff that you've been dealing with and you've been going through and you've been processing, and it feels horrible and it feels sticky and it feels dark and it feels really heavy. But just by maybe telling one more person about it, you're changing their life. And that's the energy for this year. And that's the thing that I always want my clients to know, is that when I talk about pulling out your story and pulling out your energy imprints, it's because there is somebody that needs to hear it. Someone somewhere needs to hear it. And that's very, very important. Very important.
And hence that I started this podcast on that note, exactly, because I had that given to me. And then I had the experience of changing somebody's life, not even knowing it, just having, on our Europe trip. And she thought, what, if she can still be up and going after all of that, she goes, then she ran on the treadmill, and I got off. We're on the cruise ship. I get off. I'm coming up to my room, and she comes off at the same time, and she screams. And I'm, what? And she's she literally was collapsing. I was holding her. She's like a bag of sweat, right? And she said to me, she was like, you changed my life. She said, I just healed myself. I haven't ran for 10 years because I was in so much pain. Should I go back on? She says, I said, no, we've already ran half an hour.
Do tomorrow. Not all the healing in one day. It's fine.
You don't know.
You don't know.
So to me, if one person hears us today, if it helps, if that's what happened for me. And then I got to share that, and that's all it's about.
Yeah, 100%. No, exactly the same for me. And that's why
energy, right?
Exactly. And that's why there's a lot of information that I give away for free because of that. So it's like the stuff that you literally pay me for now is very much business oriented, or like a tarot reading and like courses. But the amount of information and knowledge that I will put out in a podcast or in blog posts or on my social media, or if you drop me a DM on Instagram, like the amount that I will share and give is way beyond what the average person is giving. And I love that, because I'm like, if this helps you, like that's all that matters. Like that's part of my purpose,
right
part
there.
of my journey. Like if I'm helping one person a day, say, like that's a lot of people in my life. Like, and that's all it is. And I say the same thing about, like, you know, simple things of just like smiling at someone on the street, because that is enough sometimes to change their day, which changing their day, you just don't know the knock-on effect. There is always this energy of like stuff happening. And for me, there's been so many examples of signs and symbols and things slotting in and things happening at exactly the right times, that I'm like, the power that we hold as a human to affect energy and affect everybody collectively on the planet, not even in a woo way of like, we're all the same, like literally just like, if you do one thing a day that helps somebody, the smallest little thing, just holding the door open for somebody, like you don't know if that person that you're holding the door for could have hurt their arm when they pushed that door open. You don't know. So hold that door for somebody. They're just simple stuff. It's very, very powerful. I think if we all did that more, the world would just be a whole lot nicer, like so much nicer.
Okay, I love you. I could talk to you forever. I think that we've gone way over our hour. I might have to split it into 2 podcasts, and we definitely have to meet again, because you are
Yes.
amazing. Like, what a great conversation.
Amazing. Yeah, have me on whenever. I'll be a recurring guest.
I
love
know
it.
I'll be on your you have a website, right? So I can put it with the podcast and
Yes.
all your information. Okay.
Yes.
I will
Perfect.
make sure that you get notification, and that we have a write-up for you. And
Awesome.
thank you.
That's all right. I've loved it. Thank you very much.
You're amazing. Yeah. Okay. Mwah. See you again. Okay.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Come and see me if I don't find you.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. All right, bye.